Hey, happy Monday morning. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're here live or you watch the replay. Excuse me. It is early this morning for me, and I think it's important to remember, um, to be flexible with things. And being flexible and understanding kind of our routines and our habits. And do you ever wonder kind of like why some things seem to stick no matter what, while other things kind of seem to fall apart the second life gets a little bit messy? Am I the only one? Please tell me I'm not the only one that this happens to. Let's talk about the difference between your habits and your routines and why it matters for your peace of mind, for your money, for your business, right? Sorry, guys. Frog in my throat this morning. I've been doing a lot of talking lately. So let's just talk about habits, okay? Habits are those actions that you do almost automatically, right? With little to no thought. Think about like brushing your teeth in the morning, right? These are completely ingrained, right? They happen even when life is kind of upside down, right? Again, brushing your teeth, locking your doors, maybe grabbing your coffee first thing in the morning, right? But routines are more like a series of actions that you follow kind of intentionally, right? Often in kind of like this set order. Routines require a little bit more effort and planning, oftentimes, like a morning routine, Sunday meal prep, making calls for your business, your weekly money check-ins. They work until something disrupts them, like travels, illness, sickness, those kinds of things, right? And it's important to recognize the difference because I see so many people talking about habits when really they're talking about routines. And, you know, again, I mean, we've talked about some of, the habits and the routines, but where this really came to light for me was we were stationary. If you don't know, we're full-time RVers. We've been on the road for almost 4 years now, and we were stationary for a period of time. And I got into a really great routine, getting up at the same time, going to the gym, working out, walking, like it happened every morning, right? Until we moved, until we picked up and moved spots. And I had done that for like 5 months. And what I recognized was it wasn't a habit, it was a routine. A habit would have stuck. A habit would have continued even when we got to our new location, but it didn't, right? And so that's just an example of, the difference between habits and routines. And I want you to start taking a minute and kind of doing an evaluation of where do habits happen in your life and where are routines happening, right? What did you think was a habit, but it turns out it's really a routine? Both are important, but it's important also to understand the difference of them. Habits are like your safety net, right? When life gets really wild, like for us, we had a tire blowout while we were traveling, maybe a surprise medical bill, maybe if, you're working, your Melaleuca business and you also work a full-time job, maybe the full-time job gets a little bit crazy, right? Habits keep you grounded. They're like what you do on autopilot, right? You don't have to think about them. Routines create the structure for you. They help you build new skills, reach new goals, really create the life that you most want to create. But they can be a little bit fragile, right? So when circumstances change, routines oftentimes are the first ones to go. I just shared that experience, right? So really understanding the difference between the two, you're able to give yourself a little bit of grace when things fall apart, number one. You can focus on building strong habits that actually support you no matter what, your non-negotiables. So what turned out to be a routine, maybe some of those elements of the routine should be moved into a habit. So these are the non-negotiables. These happen absolutely no matter what. And you can use routines really for, like as a tool, right, for your growth. But please don't use it as a source of guilt when life gets messy, okay? It's also really easy to do that, and that's the last thing that I want you to be doing. right? I'm going to give you a couple little tips here on how to build some strong habits and some flexible routines, right? I'm always going to tell you and suggest to stay small, kind of start small, pick one tiny habit to kind of anchor. James Clear in Atomic Habits calls this habit stacking, right? So you pick a new habit and add it on to one that you already have. And that's a really solid way to start building in new habits. Think about what habit you want to anchor, and then decide what habit you already have that you can anchor that to. Go into it expecting your routines to change, but the key here is to plan for that change, right? So when you're traveling, when you get sick, when life gets a little bit crazy, you can keep focusing on your habits, right? And you can adjust your routines as necessary, right? Always, always, always celebrate your progress. This is not about perfection here. You guys know that from me by now. I hope you do. That it's not about perfection. It really is about progress. Honestly, who sticks to a perfect routine all the time? Certainly not me. And I don't know anybody who does, right? So here's your reminder for Monday morning that, your habits equal those kind of autopilot actions that you take, right? And your routines are the structure piece of it. Both matter, but they both serve very different purposes, all right? Not all routines need to be habit either, all right? This is important too. When you're building business, when you're working on your money, when you're working on your mindset, in any area, right? Building relationships. I think it's too much to expect yourself to create all of these habits. I think it's appropriate to look at your habits that you need to have on that you truly need to have on autopilot, right? And then create routines that support that, and then create routines that are flexible to support the life that you also most want to live, right? I would love to hear in the comments, right? What's one habit that you absolutely rely on no matter what? And what's one routine that you wish you could maybe stick to? Maybe you've kind of created a routine, but you're not really sticking to it. Share in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I would love to support you and celebrate you and potentially offer some tips. I think it's always great to share, because that's what our group is about, right? Our community is about. It's really about supporting each other, supporting our goals, supporting our dreams, right? So there's your quick little mindset tip for this Monday morning. Remember, guys, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is about some self-reflection. This is about just looking at what's working versus what maybe could be adjusted so it works a little bit more efficiently. It really is just about focusing on that one habit at a time, looking at where your routines can be adjusted a little bit so you are getting maximum results from the effort that you're putting in. All right. Happy Monday. So happy to see you today or whenever you watch this. Make sure to comment, even hashtag replay. Let me know that you watched it, and share a habit, share a routine with us. All right, friends. Happy Monday. I'll see you next week.